Okay.
He's still classified as a general surgeon, isn't he?
Present.
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 Absent is Member Havishell and Dennis.
Correct. All right, everyone stand with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, what we're going to do is go to old business. This is involving the Recreation Park Ball Field renovation project. This is project number 16-230-201. Mr. Musting?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, members, for being here tonight. We called this meeting tonight to do a follow-up on a meeting that we held last week in regards to selection of a contractor for our baseball renovation project at Recreation Park. When we met last, we reviewed the bids. The park board made a recommendation for a certain contractor. And since that time, what we have done as staff, we've gone back in to do some further investigation to make sure that the board has all the information that is accurate and up to date to ensure that when we go before council, we have the justification to make for the decision that you guys have made. So in essence, we've called this to make sure that you've read through and have seen what is in fact the justification for both parties involved. Okay, so given that fact, I know that you just received the packet, so we can take a few minutes to review that, but I do want to recap what we've done in the past. Last Tuesday on January 5th, we reviewed two bids, one from U.S. Fence and one from Geyer Fence. Both bids came in under the budget of $225,000, with U.S. Fence being the lowest at $214 and change. Geyer Fence came in at $220. Geyer Fence was the contractor for the project that was completed in 2015 on fields 6 and 8. And references were checked on both contractors, with U.S. Fence receiving excellent references and Geyer Fence receiving good references as well. The board held some discussion on the, both contractors and leaned towards Geyer Fence based on the fact that they were the previous contractor, had knowledge of the field. We wanted continuity between the projects and so forth of that nature. What staff did beyond that meeting was we went back and requested a second interview with U.S. Fence, given that they were the lowest bid, to make sure that when we go before council, your decision for whoever you chose had the justification for that. So we did a second interview with U.S. Fence on site. We walked through the project. We told them what we expected, what we wanted done, and asked basically point blank that if they could do the project, we want it in writing that they could duplicate exactly what was out there with any improvements coming through a change order, but that the 4 fields would look exactly like what we got last year, so that the complex would have continuity between each field. And that's what you have before you. So I bring this back to you today for your review to look at it, so that we make sure that we're going before council and we're enacting this project with all the information available to you. And at that point, I will entertain any questions that you have.
No questions? All right, I'm going to open this a general discussion. Is there anybody who has comments? Yes.
That was my only concern, was having it match perfectly and look the same. And if they've guaranteed that they can do that, I don't see why we would not choose the lower bid now.
Jenny, any comments? Okay. Sheldon?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, I mean, we had a meeting last week, we gave you direction in terms of what we were proposing. I'm just curious of what prompted this second meeting and this, meeting with, you know, going to US Fence. I don't believe we left the meeting last time with this direction. Just curious as to what prompted this and revisiting this. I mean, we talked about what was best and lowest. We understood, what that looked like in terms of, what our preference was. I think we discussed that. I'd just like to hear what your comments were about that.
I'll do that. It was at my suggestion as a fiduciary issue. When you go for lowest bid, you have to have justification if you're not taking the lowest bid. So from a fiduciary responsibility that we have, I felt that we should be able to assure that we had every justification to go with the vote we had on January 5th. If they can match, if they, in turn, we had assurances that they could actually match exactly the construction that was done previously, then we had no, in my opinion, there's no standing for rejecting the lowest bid. And that's what I was wanting the staff to do, was to assure that we had every right to, that we had justification for any action we took.
Okay, so when did you request this to be made? Just curious.
I believe it was Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
All right. I did it on Wednesday.
And why didn't we talk about this last week when we met? I mean, if
Because
you had those concerns about that, why wouldn't the left of the meeting been, well, can you do this, and then we rediscuss it?
Well, part of it I'll take blame for, because I did bring up fiduciary, but I didn't emphasize it. Number two, we jumped into the vote very quickly. We didn't have a whole lot of discussion prior to the vote on that, you know, because we were looking at the content.
Well, so I've worked 12 years with government contracts, and I know that you can do single source justifications, and you can write contracts as long as you're within your proposal, as long as you have the justification of what that looks like. So those can be written and those can be described, and we, you know, whether or not you just determine if it's what you want or prefer, you usually just have to document that. And well, I left the meeting feeling like we had that justification, and
Well, there was still the factor of, you got a 3% difference in the budget. And the other thing was, there was nothing that actually stood out to say that US Fence couldn't do the job, other than the fact that if you confronted them with, can you do this exactly as the prior construction was, that it matched?
well, they're trying to win the business, so they're going to say what they need to say to describe that. So,
Well, there was, go ahead, Jay.
I'd just like to kind of continue on with the thought process that we had at the last meeting when we discussed these two proposals, and yes, there is a $6,000 difference in the price. However, one of the things that we discussed was the fact that it would be nice to have the same company, because then we're insured the same stuff. Also, at a later date, if there is an issue, we don't have to decide, was this a Geier or was this a US Fencing, whatever, which company was it that installed which field, which diamond, which dugout, which anything. There's one group that we go to with any problem on any of the fields. We don't have to try and divide and figure out who did what to where. And that was a comfort level for me in deciding that although there is a $6,000 difference, a 3% difference, that ease for later on down the line was what made me comfortable with it, not having to figure out who did what. And we're tying into, I mean, they're gonna be meeting up, and I was comfortable with the same group doing it.
Let me ask staff, with the fact that there's two different contractors doing the field renovations, is that an issue for staff?
No, sir, it's not an issue for staff. We know what fields that Geier Fence did. We know what fields that, if US Fence was who you selected, which ones they would do as well. I don't think that would make a huge swaying factor on staff's part. Would like to say that any time that you have a situation where you do a lowest best bid, the decision to go with the bid that's not the lowest shouldn't be taken lightly. That is one of the reasons why I did go back and make sure that you had all the information available. Staff's not swaying the board in one way or the other in what direction to take. We just wanted to make sure you had all the information available, which is why we called this meeting tonight.
Okay, Sheldon?
I had still have a couple of concerns. U.S. Fence's recommendation, they use the term exact, guarantee the exact project, made no reference to quality. There was an issue that I talked to Nathan about. U.S. Fence has a history of doing almost exclusively fence construction for J.E. Dunn. Most of their history are construction security fences. My understanding, and I'll say my understanding, is their background with this type of installation is minimal compared to Geyer. There may be a quality issue that we'd have to address.
Mr. Musty?
When we did a walkthrough with US Fence, the guarantee or what you're seeing before you as far as being exactly, the word does say per your documents and specifications. So they did guarantee that they would use exactly what we had specified, which is what Geyer Fence did previous to. So I don't see that there would be any change or alterations as far as the specifications are concerned. And it's contractually obligation, they're obligated contractually to follow those. So if we're finding that they're not, that's our job to make sure that they either remove it and replace it with what we've asked for, or in turn, it's also our job to make sure they don't put up the wrong stuff to begin with. So.
Okay, that was
But
my
that's for either company.
that was my concern, because most of U.S. Fence's constructions have been 10, 15-foot tall security fences around J.E. Dunn's projects. Not that they can't do anything else, but the endorsement that they're pretty much J.E. Dunn's exclusive fence contractor could be a little bit misleading.
Yes, when we checked the references, we did call J.E. Dunn, and they did say that they were the only fence company that they tend to use. But on their job references, it also listed 2 softball fields, soccer complexes as well on their references. So the indication that they can't do an athletic field, I wouldn't necessarily say that. But I think the endorsement from J.E. Dunn was the fact that their quality of work was good enough that they don't deviate from the company.
Did we check the references of any other ball field customers of U.S. Fence?
We called and checked the references on all the companies that they listed that they have done work for previously. They received 9s and 10s out of 10 on, I believe it was 4 different companies. But we also checked with Geyer Fence, and Geyer Fence received 8s and 9s.
So those references were some ball fields then?
Yes,
related?
yes.
Okay.
I don't have it with me, but there were 2 different softball fields, 1 high school field, and then the Kansas City Soccer Complex out of Kansas City, Kansas. So those were some of the references listed in their bid packet.
Any other discussion or questions?
I keep looking at the proposals, and the difference in the bid items, where it just amazes me. There's a $20,000 difference over the backstops. And I just, and the same with the chain link fence. I just don't understand this. And the Geyer did our fences. They know exactly what they did before, exactly what those costs were, and what would we give as a score for our reference for Geyer Fence for their previous job? Would we give them a 7-8, or would we give them a 9-10?
As far as the comparison, we can't tell you where their manufacturer are, where they're getting their bids. I mean, but that would be the differences in their comparisons on bid to bid, is the manufacturers that they're getting their product from. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not the exact same to the specification. As far as Geyer's work for us, we would say it's probably at an 8 or 9. There were some things last year that we had to go back and walk through and make sure that they took care of, but I think that's the way it is with most contractors and most jobs, there's a punch list item and a walkthrough that you go back. When you're dealing with a project of that amount of money, we're supposed to be picky, and we're supposed to pinpoint out and make sure that they're doing things exactly how we want it, and not going in after the fact saying, oh boy, I wish we'd have done it this way. So were there times where we walked through with them and said, we want this fixed, we want that fixed? Yeah, but they also did it. So I can't knock
Right.
them for doing that as well.
Well, and then hopefully they know what those things were that we were looking for, and, you know, this other group, the US Fence Company, they have no idea how it went the last time and what issues that we focused on and whatnot. I still feel very comfortable with the Geyer fence because of the familiarity with us, the location, and the setting, and all of that.
I think the part of the issue here is when you look at it from best low bid. If everything is equal, and on that, you know, granted, you have unknowns with any contractor, but if
Yeah,
everything's equal,
gotcha.
as far as the vetting process, as far as the quality of the work that it's been reported to us as being done right, that they're and in turn, they are capable of meeting all expectations, then it comes down to what is actually, I won't say ethical, but what's proper. If you go with the low bid, your justifications you have expectations that have to be met. If you don't go with the low bid, you have to have some idea why that can. And a comfort zone is, I'll be honest with you, prior work experience with a company doesn't necessarily mean that's a justification for selecting one. Unless there's some reason that the one they're countering, the other opposite bid or the opposing bid, has some issues in the past.
Other
Bill, I
than
mean,
those
yeah.
unknowns are limited since,
I think it's up to who's defining that. So that's your impression of what that looks like in terms of what satisfies the justification to go with one over the other. You know, someone else may have a different viewpoint of that, and past history and consistency can be argued.
Well, I won't disagree with that, but then again, we don't have any past history with US Fence. We just have what's been reported to us. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is whether or not we're being subjective or not. It comes down to what I think is the correct way it should be done. But it still counts, it's still a vote that has to be generated by the board, and it's a board decision.
We already voted on it as a full board last week.
I have one more question regarding the Geyer fence bid. And I don't know how this process works. Is Geyer Fence, no, they weren't the lowest? Are they willing to match the US Fence?
Can't be done.
Okay, well,
You
I
can't
didn't
do
know,
it.
that's why I'm asking.
They are aware that they were not the lowest bid.
I see both sides of the argument, because last week I was one of the ones that was like, I want the same company, I want the same continuity. But now seeing this letter from US Fence, hearing what's being said, I trust our city people to make sure the job's done right. I trust Nathan and Steve and John that it's gonna get done right. So if the bid's lower, it's not our money, it's the city's money. It's our job to do, to me, the lower bid. And I trust that our city will make sure it's done right.
Anything further? All right. The usual procedure in something like this, if there's a change of mind on the part of the board as far as the previous vote, we would have to rescind the prior vote. And that would require a motion, just like it would require a motion after that, if that's so decided, to re-award the contract. Yeah, Jen?
Well, I would like to opt for option one, the motion to confirm and recommend Geyer Fence as the best, lowest bid to the city council.
Should've jumped in. Is there a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, motion's been To confirm the contract to Guyer, the motion has been second. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I got 3. All those opposed. All right, it's at this point, since it's a 3-3, it's nil. Now, any other motions?
I'll make a motion to rescind the original offer. Don't worry. I think we should just look at this again. I mean, if they're absolutely saying they're going to do it, you know, I mean, this is a huge step in the right direction.
And we trust our city staff, which I do.
Well, then your motion would have to be made to rescind the prior vote of January 5th, awarding contract to Guyer.
Motion to rescind the prior vote on January 5th and to
Awarding the contract to
the
Guyer,
contract again.
if that's your motion.
That's my motion.
Okay. There's been a motion to rescind the contract awarded to Guyer on January 5th. Did I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed. This is the difficulty of having an even number.
At this point, and Mr. Fairborn can correct me, but the motion fails and the original decision from January 5th stands, and staff will move forward representing the park board's wishes to city council with the information you provided and the justification that you've given, and will be at council on January 28th, I believe. Is that correct, Dave?
All right.
So that's where we'll move forward, and staff will report on January 29th at our park board meeting the outcome of the first read of city council that Monday night.
All right.
I would like to say thank you for reviewing this, taking all the information into consideration. It does help staff to be able to go forth through the city council with the information and the justification that you guys have, knowing full well that I can take this to the board with this is what the park board desires and wishes. So I appreciate your time in that.
All right. I want to thank the board, too, for their consideration of the matter. I know it's chews up a little time. If that's the case, since this was the sole business for this evening, I'm going to ask for an adjournment. Do I have a second on that?
I motion we adjourn.
Yeah, you can. I need a second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of adjournment? This park board meeting is ended.